In my experience of playing Pokemon Yellow solo challenges, flying types don't do particularly well, and the data I have in my tier list backs this up. We have Zapdos and Articuno, two legendary Pokemon in the S tier, no flying type entries in the A or the B tier, and then Moltres, the third legendary Pokemon, is at the beginning of the C tier. Of the normal flying types in the game, Farfetch'd so far is the best. I played it quite a while ago, and it got a time of 48 minutes and 29 seconds. I think that Dodrio is going to be able to beat that time today, and if it does, it just might beat Moltres' time of 47 minutes and 46 seconds, potentially earning a normal flying type a B tier finish. Or maybe I'm underestimating Dodrio entirely and it's going to get an A or S tier finish. I would be very surprised about an S tier finish though. This doesn't seem like a Pokemon that's going to get a time under 40 minutes. But Dodrio does have good base stats: 60 HP, 100 speed, 110 attack, 60 special, 70 defense, and a 19.53% chance to crit. Like all normal flying types, its move pool is incredibly limited. It starts with Peck, Growl, and Fury attack. Both of these attacking moves get the same type attack bonus, which is really helpful. It's going to need everything it can get against Brock, the rock type specialist, but more on him in just a little bit. At level 30, it learns Drill Peck, undoubtedly the best flying type move in Generation 1. The only other notable level up move that it gets is Agility, but it learns it at level 51, which is quite late for a badge boosting move. Since Dodrio is naturally going to outspeed pretty much every Pokemon in the game, I'm never going to be needing this move outside of badge boosting other stats or potentially getting around the paralysis debuff. If I want to have access to this move in the mid-game, I'm going to have to spend rare candies to get it, and I'm not sure I want to do that. We need to remember that flying types really struggle against Lorelei, so the plan for this playthrough is going to revolve around what's needed to defeat her. Through TM and HM, I will read every move because the list is so small. Whirlwind, Toxic, Body Slam, Takedown, Double Edge, Hyper Beam, Rage, Mimic, Double Team, Reflect, Bide, Skull Bash, Sky Attack, Rest, Tri Attack, Substitute, and Fly. If only Sky Attack had a secondary effect in Generation 1, in later games it's able to flinch the opponent, and I also wish this move functioned the same way as Fly. If on the first turn you used it, you were invulnerable, this would actually be a really great move in Generation 1, even though it has 90% accuracy, which is 5% lower than Fly. If you go back and watch my old Pidgeot video, you'll find that I was using Hyper Beam against Lorelei, and I just want to mention that here before we really get into this playthrough. Hyper Beam is not a move that you can really use in these solo challenges unless you don't care about time at all. The reason is that you have to purchase coins 50 at a time from the game corner. There is no option to buy them in batches of 500 like there is in later generations. If your goal for a solo challenge is, say, getting 0 faults, never having a reset, being as safe as possible, then I think you might as well get Hyper Beam or just train a lot more since you're not worried about taking extra time. I guess if you're playing a solo challenge with a level cap, maybe Hyper Beam is the best option provided time isn't important. But in my challenges, time is the most important thing, and because of that, we're not going to be able to invest in Hyper Beam. Two other quick notes about the move pool. Number one, Skull Bash does not raise your defense when you charge up with it in Generation 1, and number two, Tri Attack has no secondary effect, and that leaves Body Slam as my go-to normal move for this playthrough. And mentioning this move is when we need to compare Dodrio to the other normal flying types in the game. Both Pidgeot and Fearow cannot learn Body Slam, and it really holds them back in their playthroughs. On the other hand, Farfetch'd gets both Body Slam and Swords Dance. If Dodrio was able to use Swords Dance, it would be absolutely dominant in this format. It would definitely be able to get itself an S tier performance. And there is still one more flying type that I have not yet ranked in my tier list that I'll be playing later in November, which will get Swords Dance, and I have very high hopes for its performance. Okay, I'm getting a bit off track. Let's focus in, because Dodrio needs to beat Brock. With Peck, I have super effective damage against all the bug catchers in the forest, so defeating them makes sense to gain levels. I don't think it's going to be possible for Dodrio to beat Brock under level 10, so I might as well take as much experience as I can get here, also knocking out wild Pokemon when they show up. I skipped the lass at the beginning of the forest because her initial Nidoran female has Growl, and it makes the fight take a really long time if she chooses it on turn 1, provided you're not one-shotting. Still, after beating the mandatory bug catcher, I'm almost level 11 with Dodrio. I had some PP left over in Peck, so I fought wild Pokemon until I depleted it, and then I headed to the Pewter City Gym to face the junior trainer. There's the potential for Dodrio to do blackout training here since I could stall with Growl, but I don't think that that's going to be required. Level 13 should definitely be enough for Brock. I go back to the forest, train up to 13, and then I take on the first gym leader. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the sponsor of this video, Raycon. They've been sponsoring my channel all year, and I've been happy to have them on board because they have a fantastic product lineup. I've talked about their Everyday Earbuds Classic before, I have raved about their Magic Spin cable, and I spent maybe a little bit too much time talking about the everyday headphones and the materials they're made out of. Recently, I've been using their bone conductive headphones, which are great for off-ear audio. The technology sends vibrations through your bones, and that lets you stay alert to the world around you. This makes them perfect for multitasking. I can keep listening to whatever Pokemon content I want while I'm also doing chores and available for my wife to flag me down. They're built for all-day use. They have 13 hours of battery life. They're also waterproof and dust-proof, which makes them great for when you're doing things like physical activity, which is really something I need to do more of. Another great thing about Raycon is that they give you premium performance without the same price tag. Plus, they come with a 30-day happiness guarantee. With Black Friday just around the corner, Raycon audio products are up to 30% off site-wide. From everyday essentials to the latest releases, it's the perfect time to upgrade your sound or get ahead on gifting. These early deals won't last long. Shop now before they're gone. Just click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/Scott'sThoughtsBC to save up to 30% off of Raycon products. Thanks to Raycon for sponsoring the video. Now back to Brock. The first question I had right away is how many growls will minimize Geodude's damage without wasting time. At low levels like this, sometimes using additional growls will not decrease the damage that Geodude does by 1, and so using an additional growl in a case like that is basically pointless. Because of this, I thought that 1 growl was probably the best. It'll reduce Geodude's damage substantially, and then I can use Fury Attack and knock out his first Pokemon, hopefully defeating it with a decent amount of health left over for the Onix. Dodrio's high crit rate here is very helpful because whenever a multi-hit move crits in Generation 1, each hit does the same amount of damage. If I get a 5-turn critical hit with Fury Attack, I'm going to make quick work of this Geodude. I do get a critical hit, but it only lasts for 2 turns unfortunately. But then on the next turn, I score another critical hit. This one lasts for 3 turns, taking the Geodude down to red health, and then I knock it out with my follow-up attack. For the Onix, Dodrio has roughly half of its HP left over. Not a great position. I was hoping for green health for the Onix, but this'll have to do. Against Onix, there are 2 potential strategies. Number 1, go for Growl right away to lower its damage with both Tackle and Bind. Or number 2, just attack with Fury Attack because it's going to be doing decent damage every turn, roughly from 2 to 5. Although in this case, it looks like I'm doing more than 1 damage per hit to the Onix, at least on some turns. I decided to lower Onix's attack by 1 stage and then use Fury Attack to knock it out. If it goes for Bide, then I can use more Growls, lowering its attack further while it wastes its time. The one problem with going for the Growl right away strategy is that I have more opportunities to get hit by Screech, increasing Onix's damage while I decrease it with Growl. Because I'm only changing the stage modifier by 1, Onix using Screech is more efficient, and it can put Dodrio in a bad position. But if I just attack right away, the same thing could play out. In the end, Onix is just kind of incompetent in this battle. The only moves I'm really scared of are Tackle and Bind, and it just chooses Bide and Screech over and over again, and eventually I finish it, having 13 hit points remaining. Dodrio gets a first split of 6 minutes and 42 seconds, which I think is pretty solid for a flying normal type which only had resisted moves. Not that much changes for Dodrio over the next section of the game. There's some bugs on Route 3 which are all really easy to knock out with Peck. I can use Fury Attack for Pokemon like this Rattata or this Ekans, or just continue using Peck. They're also quick to knock out. There's always a choice between fighting the Lass or the Bug Catcher here, and I think it makes sense to fight the Bug Catcher since I'm gonna one-shot all of his bugs. And the Lass has a Rattata and a Nidoran male. I estimated that I was going to have to 2-shot both the Rattata and the Nidoran male using Peck, which would make either fight take 4 turns. Since the Bug Catcher is going to give more experience, he makes more sense to fight. I got really curious while doing this voiceover, so I did check the damage ranges for this root file of Dodrio just to see what it actually would have been against the Lass, and yeah, it's most likely going to be 3 or 4 turns. I have a 40% chance to one-shot the Rattata using Peck and a 38% chance on the Nidoran male. Since there's downside, I think the Bug Catcher makes sense with his upside of experience. Okay, in Mount Moon, I did decide to fight some optional trainers. I took on the Bug Catcher, who has 3 Pokemon that are easily one-shots with Peck, and then the Lass with her grass types, both of which are also one-shots with Peck. I was feeling a little bit worried about the rivals Sandshrew in Cerulean City if Dodrio is not level 18 over a damage rounding threshold. I'm gonna have to knock out the defensive ground type using Fury Attack, and it does expose me to Sand Attack, which is gonna make Fury Attack very unlikely to hit with its its 85% base accuracy. I defeat the fossil nerd, grab myself the dome fossil, because even though Kabutops lost in October, it is still my favorite. With my extra training during the Jesse and James fight, Dodrio levels up to 18, and then I take the rival on in Cerulean City because Misty doesn't make sense. Spearow is first. I go for Peck, hoping that it's not going to use Growl, and I am so grateful that it didn't. I move on to the Sandshrew. Here I used Peck. I think I should be using Fury Attack. Unfortunately, I get hit by Sand Attack not once, but 2 times in a row. Luckily, Peck is a 3-shot, and I do knock out the Sandshrew not missing. But then I start to miss on the Rattata, but only for 1 turn. And the Sand Attack's badge boosted my attack stat, so it's 73 right now, and with Peck, I'm able to one-shot the Rattata. But then Dodrio levels up to 19 and loses its badge boosts. So it has to 3-shot the Eevee, and I get hit by another Sand Attack, but then that boosted my damage, and I no longer have to 3-hit. I knock it out, and the rival ends up being pretty easy. Reflecting back to the extra training I did in Mount Moon, I don't think I needed it for this battle. On Route 24 and 25, I'm going to fight minimum battles. The only thing that's really annoying about this section of the game is having to fight one of the hikers. Either the guy with Onyx, or this guy, which gives me access to an elixir, and typically he's better so that I don't have to backtrack to Cerulean City to heal in the Pokemon Center. It's just so slow knocking out his Geodude with Fury Attack. If I get critical hits, at least it speeds things up because he likes to use Defense Curl. So in the end, this battle doesn't end up as bad as I was expecting. By the time I'm finished Route 25, Dodrio has 59 speed, so it's going to be moving first against all of Misty's Pokemon. I think it makes sense to go back and fight her now. One thing I do want to quickly mention though is that at level 21, I had a speed tie with the Starmie, so fighting the Starmie at level 22 seems like the best option for a follow-up playthrough. Okay, now let's see how Fury Attack does. Hopefully not too many misses. Staryu is first. I'm not going to use Fury Attack here because Peck is superior, it's going to 2-shot, and I take very little damage from Tackle in the process. Misty doesn't know that she should be using her water moves here, and that is an advantage for Dodrio. I go for Fury Attack against the Starmie, right away get a critical hit, and do roughly half because I only hit for 2 turns. Then I miss with Fury Attack, Misty uses an X defend, which is annoying. Fury Attack is now doing a lot less damage, and then the Starmie crits with Water Gun, taking Dodrio under half health. I think if she hits with a Bubble Beam, I might lose. I didn't want to miss more with Fury Attack, so I went with Peck, and it just barely doesn't do enough damage to knock out her ace. Then she chooses Bubble Beam, what I was worried about. But Dodrio survives on 8 hit points, hits with 1 more Peck, and her ace goes down. Still no resets in this run. That's a Misty split of 14 minutes and 25 seconds. This is where everything changes for Dodrio. On the SSN, I grab the TM for Rest, which will be helpful later in the game to make things safe, especially against Lorelei, and then I grab the TM for Body Slam. Having access to this move early on with the same type attack bonus honestly feels kind of broken when you have 110 base attack. And we also have Brock's Badge, increasing Dodrio's attack by 12.5%. I grab the rare candy on the SSN to work towards levels for Lorelei, and then against the rival, I completely obliterate his team with Body Slam. I even one-shot the Sandshrew, and with it going down, Dodrio levels up to 26, and it now has 69 speed. Exactly what I need to beat Surge because I'm going to be moving first against his Raichu. Body Slam turn 1. Look at how much damage it did. Way more than half. Raichu survives on red health. Goes for Growl, misses, and then I knock it out for free. Surge is really terrible. I was curious if he would have won if his Raichu was able to choose Thunderbolt, and he would have. With its lowest roll, it does 105% damage. But the fact that he doesn't have AI modification 3 in this game means that he's just going to be incompetent in most cases, maybe causing a 15-second reset here and there for Dodrio. My third split is 17 minutes and 42 seconds. Dodrio stacks up really well against the majority of the trainers in the Rock Tunnel Gauntlet. I have super effective damage for the Wrapping Lass, so she's never going to be an issue. This Pokemaniac just gets destroyed by Body Slam, so the only trainer in here that could cause a problem is the self-destructing hiker. But Dodrio also has an answer for him. I can spam Growl against all of his Pokemon, wait for them to use self-destruct, and then they take care of themselves. There is some risk here because they do have Rock Throw, which can do decent damage, and his Graveler just kept using it, which I found really annoying. It's chipping away at Dodrio over and over and over again. But here's the thing, I can just attack with Body Slam, and Dodrio's attack stat is so ridiculously high that this resisted move does okay damage. damage, and I end up just knocking out the Graveler with the normal type move. It actually might be possible to just beat him using Body Slam and never use a single Growl, since Dodrio does so much damage with Body Slam, and his Pokemon was taking less damage here because it was able to set up with Defense Curl before I attacked it. So far so good, no resets. In Celadon City, I'm going to go to the Rocket Hideout to pick up a PP up, as well as the rare candy. I decided to skip the Double Edge TM here because I think Body Slam should be good enough throughout the mid-game. Next, instead of the department store, I go to Erica's gym because I'm about to hit level 30. Fighting the Cool Trainer levels Dodrio up, and I teach Drill Peck in the place of Peck. Now, Erica should be completely trivial. Tangela is first. I go for Drill Peck, and it does enough damage to one-shot with a critical hit. Dodrio levels up to 31, she sends in Weepin' Bell, and since it's less physically bulky when compared with Tangela, I just knock it out in one turn. This one wasn't a crit, and I figured the Gloom would also go down to one hit, which it does. By the way, I got a little bit lucky there. I only have a 38.1% chance to one-shot the Tangela, but even if it attacked Dodrio, what would it do? Constrict, Bind, Mega Drain, and Vine Whip are its only options. Fighting Erica first does mean that I have a little bit more money for the department store. Still, not enough to buy 3 vitamins. I'm going to be investing in protein here, so I buy 2. I need to keep my other money so I can buy Pokedolls, Repels, but also balls, because I do want to catch myself a Doduo. Since we learned Drill Peck, I don't think it makes any sense to teach Dodrio Fly at any point in this playthrough. Drill Peck has a higher base power, and you don't need an extra turn to charge, so I'll save time by using this move. The rival in Pokemon Tower is so easy with Body Slam. One shot, one shot, one shot, one shot, and one shot. Then the Chandler and Pokemon Tower just continue the one-shotting spree because Drill Peck's physical and the ghosts fall apart to it. In the next section of the game, I'm going to explore Cycling Road and Silph and do a bunch of training in these areas. I fight 5 people in total on Cycling Road, and then 12 people inside of Silph Co. This brings Dodrio up to level 43, and I felt like this was good for the rival. Sandslash is first. Body Slam is able to two-shot, but I do get hit by Sand Attack. I start missing, take a Swift in the process, and then I miss against the Cloister, which ends up being Dodrio's undoing. With good AI, the rival is always going to be choosing Aurora Beam, and 2 hits from this move knock Dodrio out. I tried again. I was hoping to get better luck, sustaining damage from only 1 Aurora Beam, and I am able to pull that off. But then I can't one-shot the Magneton with Body Slam, although the rival does use a potion because it did significant damage. Then I one-shot the Kadabra, move on to Flareon, get a Generation 1 miss with my Body Slam. Flareon hits with Bite, and it does a good amount of damage, but not enough to knock me out in 2 hits. I use Body Slam on the next turn. Flareon survives with a tiny amount of health, uses Sand Attack, Body Slam misses. Flareon uses Fire Spin, which continues long enough to knock out Dodrio. Are you kidding? I lost that fight because of a Gen 1 miss? Yeah, I did. So I tried again, thinking that I would be able to get through this battle, but no, Cloister drops my attack and then Magneton paralyzes with Thunder Shock. This is just not going well. I decided to leave Silph and fight Koga next, since he's basically a bug-type specialist in Pokemon Yellow, and Drill Peck should destroy all of his team members. Inside the gym, I can also fight the Tamers for great experience. This will make me a higher level when I go back to fight the rival. Okay, now time for the bug user. I don't think Koga has any chance. Venonat 1, one shot with Drill Peck. Venonat 2 is the same, and so is Venonat 3. I did learn Tri-Attack right before it came out. This is just so I have more PP. As you can see, Dodrio just has some slots on its set at this point in the game that it's not using. I'm still holding on to Fury Attack. There's nothing else that I want to put in its place. I guess I could have gone for Rest for the self-destructing hiker, but other than that, I can't think of anything. Maybe Double Edge for slightly better damage against some targets in the mid-game. Overall, there's just not a lot of options for flying types. As I was expecting, this fight's really easy. I even one-shot the Venomoth with Drill Peck. Before returning to the rival in Silph, it would be nice to get a special boost from Blaine's badge. But Blaine is one of the scariest trainers in Pokemon Yellow. Even water types end up losing against him in these challenges. To prepare, I fought a bunch of trainers on Route 21 that have good experience yields. This took Dodrio up to level 47, and then inside Blaine's gym, I continued my training, leveling up to 48. Hopefully this is all going to be enough for the Fire-type specialist. I don't really want to use rare candies here if I can prevent it. I want to save them for Lorelei so that Dodrio can be the maximum possible level to take her on. Blaine leads with Ninetales. I go for Body Slam and it does more than half. Ninetales gets paralyzed, then it just goes for Tail Whip, badge boosting me, which is convenient. I knock it out, Rapidash comes in next. Body Slam brings it to red health. It goes for Stomp, which does a decent amount of damage, and then I finish it. So I'm moving on to Arcanine with roughly 3/4 health, and Body Slam isn't able to do half. Well, it looks like it did a little bit less, maybe exactly half. Arcanine then goes for Takedown, which does so much because my defense was lowered. However, it's not enough to knock out Dodrio, and the recoil means that my next Body Slam is able to knock out Blaine's ace. So I did it. I beat him on my first attempt and earned the Volcano badge. This is really promising. Let's go back and face the rival. Body Slam still has to two-shot the Sand Slash, luckily no Sand Attack. I have to two-shot the Cloyster. It uses Aurora Beam, but with the special boost and more levels, it's just not doing enough damage. Body Slam one-shots Magneton with a critical hit, one-shots Kadabra, and one-shots Flareon. Giovanni isn't a problem for Dodrio here, but I think that when he takes over the gym in Viridian City, that's going to be a tricky battle, because Rhydon will know Rock Slide. Before Sabrina, I grab the Mimic TM. I think this one's going to be critical for the late game, and then I completely crush the Psychic-type specialist. Dodrio is way faster than all of her Pokemon, and even using Tri-Attack, I'm one-shotting them. This is where I level up to 51, and I teach Agility in the place of Fury Attack. Finally, I have a fourth move. For the Alakazam, I continued going with Tri-Attack, and I do one-shot here. I got a critical hit. I'm not sure if it would have been a knockout if I didn't crit there. I went over and I looked at the damage ranges, and yes, it would have been a one-shot. Every single one of Dodrio's moves one-shot all of her Pokemon. There is no way for Sabrina to win this other than me getting a Generation 1 miss. And even then, I would have to get extremely unlucky. Psychic from Alakazam only does between 47 and 56% damage. I'm glad I was able to use Tri-Attack just a little bit during this playthrough. After all, it's a fun move. It's way more fun in later generations with its secondary effect. But I'm gonna have to get rid of it now because I need to make sure that I have a spot for Mimic so that I can use it against Giovanni. His first Pokemon's Dugtrio, and I don't have to worry about it since I'm faster than all of his Pokemon. I one-shot with Body Slam, move on to Persian, use Mimic, Steel Double Team, which is permitted by my rules, and then I'm going to set up my Evasion. This also badge boosts all of my other stats. What I want to avoid during this fight is getting hit by Nidoqueen or Nidoking's Thunder, or Rhydon's Rock Slide. And I also need badge boosts to ensure that I do enough damage with Body Slam or Drill Peck to knock the Rock type out. While I'm doing this, I want to explore an alternative strategy because a lot of you will be saying, why not just mimic Earthquake from the Dugtrio and then use it for super effective damage later in the fight? Well, I would have to two-shot his final 3 Pokemon then, giving them all the chance to attack once. Thunder does a minimum of 52% damage, so getting hit by it twice is unacceptable. If one of them missed, then Rock Slide does a minimum damage of 79% damage. Now, I could set up with Agility. If I set up with Agility, then I would one-shot the Nidoqueen and the Nidoking. But taking time to set up with Agility exposes me to either Sand Attack from the Dugtrio or potentially Slash from the Persian, which has a maximum damage roll when critical hitting, which it is going to every turn, of 49%. Plus, Earthquake, even after 3 Agility badge boosts, has to two-shot the Rhydon. Now, I have no interest in telling you how you should play these games. I think that everyone should engage with this series in the way that gives them the most fun. The double team strategy has been grandfathered into my solo challenges for an extremely long period of time at this point, so I'm just going to use it. Double team is the safest way to play here with my solo challenge rules. And I'm able to pull off a first attempt victory on Giovanni. I tried to play the rival without badge boosting with Agility. I two-shot the Sand Slash, one-shot the Execute with Drill Peck, and then I would have two-shot the Cloyster if it didn't lower my attack with its first Aurora Beam. Because of that, I take even more damage and my attack is lowered again, so I'm not going to knock out the Magneton. This is a loss. I tried this strategy again, but Cloyster drops my attack with its first Aurora Beam for a second time in a row. I also did what looks like less than half with my Body Slam this time around. I don't think this is going to work. We're close enough to Lorelei now that I feel comfortable using rare candies, boosting Dodrio from level 53 all the way up to 63 before fighting the rival again. My damage ranges are better, but I still have to two-shot the Sand Slash, and I take damage from a critical hit Slash in the process. I'm definitely not going to one-shot the Cloyster, so I have to pray that it's not going to drop my attack with Aurora Beam. Unless I get a critical hit, then I do one-shot, which is what happens here. Body Slam has enough damage to one-shot the Magneton without boosts, and and the Kadabra and the Flareon are basically irrelevant at the end of this battle. I one-shot both of them, and I'm pretty sure that would have happened even if I didn't crit the Flareon. I checked the damage ranges, and yes, minimum damage roll on the Flareon is 114%. Right after using rare candies, it doesn't really feel good to do optional training, but I did do some in Victory Road to level up Dodrio over the next damage rounding threshold at level 65. This involved fighting 3 trainers as well as 1 wild graveler. Okay, we have reached that point in the run, the true test for all normal flying types. The ice type specialist Lorelei awaits Dodrio. My goal here is use my less powerful move Drill Peck to do some damage to Dugong so that it uses rest, and then I can spam agility badge boosting. But I get a critical hit with Drill Peck and I one-shot her lead. Not really a great start to this fight, although I guess I'll take it. Let's see what we can do against the Cloyster. I go for Body Slam, it does more than half and it also paralyzes, but it doesn't prevent Cloyster from using Ice Beam. It does almost half, and then I knock it out, so I'm in an okay position here. I can mimic Amnesia now set up so that Slowbro, Jinx, and Lapras won't do that much damage. I complete badge boosting with agility, further increasing Dodrio's attack stat, and then I use Body Slam, which 2-shots the Slowbro. Okay, pretty good. Jinx is obviously going to be a one-hit, leaving only Lapras. And I was so surprised here, because I expected to have to tank a hit from Blizzard, but no, Body Slam just has enough damage. I can't believe it. We beat Lorelei on our first attempt, even with bad luck against the Dugong getting a critical hit. Alright, let's continue. There's this guy. I'm gonna mimic Dig for his rock types, but Drill Peck will destroy all of his fighting types. And Drill Peck continues being amazing against Agatha's team. I can use it for the ghosts, and Body Slam for the Golbat and Arbok. Even without badge boosting, Dodrio one-shots all of her Pokemon. We are kind of on a roll here. Let's continue with Lance. His Gyarados uses Dragon Rage, which doesn't do that much. I 2-shot with Body Slam. Body Slam one-shots the first Dragonair. The second one comes in. I steal Ice Beam with Mimic. It chooses Ice Beam, luckily not freezing, and then I knock it out with Body Slam. I now have Ice Beam for the Aerodactyl, which allows Dodrio to one-shot. Dragonite comes in, I have 4 times damage. This is easy. However, it miraculously survives on a sliver of health, uses Thunder, and Dodrio goes down. I checked the damage ranges here. By the way, Ice Beam does between 98 and 115% damage to the Dragonite, and it has a 91.7% chance to one-shot. So Dodrio just got really unlucky. In the next battle, I simply click Ice Beam and Dragonite faints like it should have. Now, let's move on to the champion. For Dodrio, I see 2 possible ways to play this battle. Number 1, mimic Earthquake from the Sandslash so that I have a super effective move against the Magneton and the Flareon. The alternative is mimicking Hypnosis from the Executor and putting the Magneton and the Cloyster to sleep. If I run the Earthquake strategy, then I'm going to be at the mercy of Cloyster, since even after badge boosts, I'm not going to one-shot, and it could crit with a move like Ice Beam or potentially freeze. It could also drop my attack with Aurora Beam, completely ruining my badge boost strategy. I decided to play the honorable strategy here, mimicking Earthquake. Then 2 hits with Body Slam, or a crit knocks out the Sandslash. I can one-shot the Alakazam. Drill Peck one-shots Executor. I'm skipping badge boosts. I could have gone for them there if I wanted to, but with Earthquake, I can one-shot the Magneton. Then for Cloyster, I use Body Slam, and it does more damage than I was expecting because of a critical hit, and it also paralyzes. Cloyster can't move, and I knock it out for free. Yeah, okay, the Earthquake strategy looks pretty good when I get this kind of luck. I use Earthquake on Flareon, it faints, and Dodrio clocks in with its first playthrough time, 50 minutes and 53 seconds. With 6 resets, it finished the game at level 70 with a game time of 3 hours and 11 minutes. This is a pretty decent time for a first playthrough with a normal flying type. Dodrio is way better than Pokemon like Pidgeot and Fearow. It's so close to Farfetch'd and Moltres that I think in follow-up runs it's definitely gonna beat them. But the jury is still out here. I don't think that Dodrio is the best normal flying type. I do think it's Farfetch'd, since Swords Dance is so good. I looped in Zealspawn for these optimizations. He sent me a root file. I looked at it, and I couldn't really find that much that I would do different. I made one significant change, but that was it. After that, I just played the strategy that he had outlined, and it ends up being really good for Dodrio. But there is an alternative to this approach, and I'll talk about that near the end. First of all, in the early game, fight all 4 bug catchers, and then fight the junior trainer. This gets Dodrio to level 10. We don't need to battle a single wild Pokemon. Dodrio does not not need level 13 to fight Brock, it can do this at level 10. 1 Growl on the Geodude is optimal because 2 does not lower its damage. You would have to go all the way to -3 if you wanted the next drop. And then Dodrio is just going to take more damage from Tackle during the time you're using the Growls than you would otherwise get back by just not using them and attacking with Fury Attack right away after 1. We also have the upside for critical hits here, which can speed up this part of the battle. Against Onix, I'm just not going to use Growl. I'll go for Fury Attack right away and use Growl in the case that it goes for Bide. But I should note that when you're using Fury Attack, you can continue to attack into Bide if you have a lot of health left over from the Geodude. This is because Bide only accumulates damage from the first hit of Fury Attack. In a lot of cases when his Onix goes for Bide, it makes sense to use Growl on turn 1 and maybe turn 2 depending on what his attack stat is, and then attack with Fury Attack even if he accumulates some damage, because then we can knock the Onix out a little bit more quickly and it's only going to do 2 damage in retaliation with Bide, unless it unleashes energy after the second Growl, in which case it will do no damage with Bide and we just go back to Fury Attack and everything's great. It is of course possible for Dodrio to lose with this strategy, but I don't think it makes any sense to level to 13 since there's so much upside here. In most of my playthroughs, I beat Brock right away. In this case, I get a time that is 2 minutes and 54 seconds faster than my previous run. Dodrio just got itself a 3 minute and 48 second Brock split. This is excellent for a normal type Pokemon. On Route 3, fight the Bugcatcher. The Lass isn't really an option anymore because we're level 14 and we would have to 2-shot both of her Pokemon, and losing out on the experience just doesn't make sense. Unlike before in Mount Moon, I am just going to fight the mandatory trainers and then go and fight the rival in Cerulean City at level 16. I've left this footage walking up to the rival unedited because I am not taking a save here. In my experience with Dodrio, it just isn't required. The rival really isn't that good, and if I lose, I can restart the challenge. It's roughly 7 minutes of time up until this point, and if you don't want to restart the challenge, you can just black out and take a little bit of extra experience here. Last night, Zealouspawn and I actually had a discussion about saving in these solo challenges, and it's kind of like buying yourself insurance. You're paying for an event which might never end up happening, and so what you need to consider is what happens if that downside does end up occurring. In this case, we just walk back to the rival and fight him again or restart the challenge and lose 7 minutes. For me, losing 7 minutes is in the acceptable range to get a really good run with Dodrio, so that's what I'm going to do here. As I walk back from Bill's house, I really want to point out some key numbers. We are level 21 with about 1/3 experience. Also, our speed is exactly 56 as I mentioned during the first playthrough. Fighting the junior trainer inside of Misty's gym doesn't level Dodrio up, but it does give enough experience to be close to leveling up, and then I fight Misty without a save. This is because I know I'm going to knock out the Staryu very quickly, and when I do, I will level up to 22 and then outspeed the Starmie, which gets rid of what was formerly a speed tie. Also, the lack of a save in front of Misty is because if I lose this, I can just black out and then walk right back over to her, wasting very little time. I then get additional experience from the Staryu, but if I lost here, I would have just started the challenge over again. I'm fine with losing this amount of time. Dodrio's early game is actually really satisfying to play because it has flying type moves. It crushes everything in the forest and throughout the Mount Moon section of the game. Really, there's only some annoyances with using Fury Attack against Pokemon like these Pidgey. If I miss and then get hit by a sand attack, things can spiral out of control, but in my experience with Dodrio, this never happened once. I didn't have a single restart to a random trainer in the early game, so it didn't feel like something I should be wasting time saving for. I am going to reorder my SSN because I've broken out of muscle memory from years of playing these solo challenges, which has me always going over and picking up rest first. Instead, I get Body Slam, fight the rival, and then I go and pick up rest last. This way I have Body Slam to defeat the Sailor, which is right in front of the TM, making the battle slightly faster, and less risky since I don't have to use Fury Attack. Okay, true question, did Surge defeat me once during these Dodrio playthroughs? No, he was always easy, he's a terrible trainer. For the self-destructing hiker, I did decide to play a different strategy than Zealouspawn. This is the one change that I made to the route. Since Dodrio's moveset is not constrained during the mid-game, I have no problem teaching rest during this fight, and then just using Growl and rest contextually if I'm gonna lose otherwise. Ideally, I'm just gonna spam Body Slam. That is the fastest way to win against him, but it's not quite as safe, and I would like to prevent resets here if I can. Unfortunately, the one downside of running any strategy here is if they use self-destruct at bad times, or if they get critical hits with self-destruct, and this Geodude does. It's always so frustrating when slow Pokemon like this get critical hits. While I'm exploring the hideout to get the candy, I also pick up Double Edge because it does have a use during the mid-game. In the department store, I buy 3 Calcium. This is useful for the damage range against Lance's Dragonite, and they also help Dodrio take slightly less damage when fighting Lorelei, and this is helping to make up for the fact that I am going to be taking her on at a lower level during this playthrough. On Cycling Road, I only need to fight 2 trainers, which is a big reduction from the 6 that I fought last time. As soon as I arrive in Fuchsia City, I might as well just go to the gym and fight Koga. Last time I backtracked here after fighting the rival in Silph and losing 3 times, that makes no sense. I can fight 1 tamer in the gym to gain additional experience, then defeat the mandatory juggler and crush Koga with drill peck. While I no longer have a 1-shot on his Venomoth, I can just 2-shot it. The worst possible thing that can happen here is Venomoth gets a critical hit with Psychic. It doesn't, but I survive the regular hit. Inside Silph, I'm going to fight a bunch of optional trainers. Machoke Candy, Hypno Rocket, this guy who I call the 4 Rocket. I don't have a good name for him, I'm sorry. He never causes problems, so he doesn't deserve a title. This guy who has Wheezing, Golbat, and Coughing, I haven't thought of a name for him. Maybe the Zealous Pawn Rocket, since he's the one who started fighting him, and then I started adding him into my routes because of that. The Reception Rocket, the Grimy Scientist, the Stacked Scientist, the Protein Scientist, and finally the mandatory Arbok Grunt. This brings Dodrio close to level 43 for the rival. Of all of the battles outside of Lorelei, I think this is the worst one for Dodrio. Using Body Slam, I 2-shot the Sandslash and the Cloyster, but Double Edge is useful here against the Magneton. It has a 79.4% chance to 1-shot, and then I have guarantees on the following Kadabra, and Double Edge guarantees my 1-shot on the Flareon, or I can roll for a 60.8% chance to 1-shot with Body Slam. There are plentiful ways for Dodrio to lose here. I can get hit by Sand Attack from the Sandslash, it can do a lot of damage with Slash, then the Cloyster can drop my attack with Aurora Beam or get a critical hit, and it can fail the damage range and not knock out the Magneton, then getting hit by Thundershock. Also, it can paralyze Dodrio with Thundershock if I survive. Remember, in this rival battle, he does have AI modification 3, so Thundershock is the only move that Magneton is going to choose. I took 2 resets in this playthrough against the rival. I'm not happy about this, but if I get a good Lorelei in the late game, I'm still going to be fine with this result for Dodrio overall. Inside Sabrina's gym, I fight the Psychic that has 4 Pokemon for experience, and then after crushing the Psychic-type gym leader, I take on Psych on my way to Cinnabar Island. Last time I wasn't sure if I should use rare candies before Blaine, and I fought him at level 48. I didn't end up having a reset against him, but I think I should have. This is the moment where I'm going to use rare candies, going from 47 up to 57 before taking on the Fire-type specialist. Dodrio's damage ranges still are not great here, a 23.7% chance to 1-shot the Ninetales and a 40.2% chance to 1-shot the Rapidash. I have to 2-shot the Arcanine. By the way, it is possible to play this fight with Double Edge if you didn't teach Rest earlier in the playthrough. I want Rest for Lorelei, so if I teach it for the self-destructing hiker, then I can't have Double Edge here if I want to keep Drill Peck. If I went back and did this playthrough again, I think that I would have taught Agility during the rare candies in the place of Drill Peck and kept Double Edge for this battle. If I did this, then I can 1-shot both the Ninetales and the Rapidash using Double Edge, and the minimum damage rolls with it are beautiful. 101% and 103%. Using 1 less rare candy and starting the fight at level 56 would mean that Double Edge no longer has a guarantee against the Ninetales. Here's the thing though, it doesn't matter that I didn't have Double Edge for this fight because I still beat Blaine on my first attempt. The reason I wanted to keep Drill Peck was for this black belt inside of Giovanni's gym. He's one of the mandatory trainers, and I thought that super effective damage would mean that I would 1-shot all of his Pokemon, and I didn't want to use Body Slam. Turns out Body Slam has the 1-shots here anyway, so I could have had Double Edge in the place of Drill Peck, and then I teach Mimic right after this fight, and I put it in the place of Drill Peck. It would have gone in the place of Double Edge anyways, so all of this works out to have Double Edge for Blaine. That is definitely the better strategy. For Giovanni, just double team. This is the way to do it. By the way, the Rhydon did hit me with a Rock Slide here after I set up with double team and agility. Luckily my defense is so high that I just shrug off the rock type move and finish his ace. Against Rival 6, I only need 1 agility. If I set up to +3, I will still not 1-shot the Cloyster, and with 1 agility, I will 1-shot the Magneton. As long as Aurora Beam doesn't get an attack drop, I'm going to win this fight. The experience from the rival battle beautifully brings Dodrio to exactly level 60, which is exactly what I want for Lorelei. No optional trainers or random wild battles are required in Victory Road. I'm going to play Lorelei essentially the same as I did last time. Body Slam for Dugong on turn 1, hope that it goes for Rest, also hope that it doesn't crit me with Aurora Beam or get an attack drop. It crits me in this case in 1-shots, so that's a reset. Although losing there against Dugong that quickly is actually a good thing for Dodrio, rather than losing later into the battle against, say, the Slowbro, which is possible. The next battle put me in one of these bad positions. Cloyster used Ice Beam, and I was able to set up with agility, so I survived this hit, and then Slowbro comes in. I mimic Amnesia here, and I got a bit risky just setting up a bunch before I used Rest. But it ends up working. I'm able to set up with Amnesia all the way so that special moves aren't doing much damage, and then with badge boosts, Dodrio crushes the rest of Lorelei's team because it doesn't have a mid-battle level up. Okay, we'll briefly talk about strategy for this battle. We have taught Fly in the place of Rest, dust. This is good against the fighting types here, it just speeds up progress a little bit. I have to use dig for the rock types, of course. And fly is also my answer for Agatha, who's next. I need a flying type move for damage, so the fact that I gave up drill peck does necessitate that I teach fly here, unless I want to mimic something like lick, which is not going to be good enough. That strategy really only works for swords dance users. Note here that I do mimic substitute from the first Gengar. This is because I want to set up with agility. The badge boosts do help Dodrio's damage ranges, I just have to wait till I knock out the first Gengar and the first Golbat in order to set up. Then I can get fly up to a 95% chance to knock out both the Haunter as well as the Gengar if I choose to go for all 3 agilities. Only setting up 2 gives fly a 55.8% chance on the Gengar, so this is also good enough. For Lance, last time I had some damage range problems, so this time I'm going to use 1 rare candy before fighting him, going over the damage rounding threshold at level 63. This does delete some experience, but there's no way around that. It's better to just not level up in the middle of this battle, because then I can use a single agility on turn 1 against the Gyarados. With this damage boost, I have a 52.5% chance to one-shot the Aerodactyl with Ice Beam and a guarantee on Dragonite. The Aerodactyl isn't too concerning with its damage ranges. Its best move, Hyper Beam, without a critical hit maxes out at 37% damage, and with a crit, it maxes out at 89%, which will likely knock out Dodrio since Gyarados is going to do some damage, or it's going to soften me up with Leer. But I can just get the one-shot on the Aerodactyl with Ice Beam, and that's what happens here. Because of that, I have no resets to Lance. This puts Dodrio 5 minutes and 49 seconds ahead of its first playthrough. When fighting the champion at a lower level, I think there is the option of going for the Earthquake strategy, but experience needs to line up differently, and I don't think there's an easy way to do that. Zealous Pawn and I tried to work out a route where this would happen. What I would want for the Earthquake strategy is the ability to set up agility against the Sandslash on the champion. But this isn't possible if I'm about to level up when I knock it out. Instead here, I just need to 2-shot and move on to the Alakazam. This is a 1-shot with Body Slam, and then on Executor, I can mimic Hypnosis. I put the Grass type to sleep because I don't want to get hit by a bunch of Stomps and Barrages. It's never going to go for Leech Seed because I am a flying type, and so Hypnosis facilitates me taking less damage. I can then set up with Agility here and knock it out with Fly. With setup from Agility, I am able to Body Slam and 1-shot Magneton, and then Hypnosis just needs to hit against Cloyster. If it does, I 2-shot with Body Slam and 1-shot the final Flareon. It works out for me in this playthrough, and I finish the game with a final time of 45 minutes and 9 seconds, with 4 resets at level 65, and a game time of 2 hours and 54 minutes. I think this result is fairly representative of what Dodrio should pull off in most playthroughs. The alternative option is trying to luck past Lorelei at a lower level, or just not use rest for her. This is possible, and with minimal resets, it will get Dodrio a better time. The problem is, it's just wildly inconsistent to try to beat Lorelei at a lower level, and that's why in the end I went for the level 60 strategy. Okay, jumping over to the tier list, how did this normal flying type do? Well, it was able to get a time under 47 minutes to earn itself a B tier position, and it actually got the best one, beating out Golem, just barely by 9 seconds, not making it into the overcrowded A tier. This result does put Dodrio as the best normal flying type in the game, leaving Farfetch'd in the dust. However, before you make conclusions based on my results, let me show you what Zealous Pawn was able to do with these two Pokemon. Using Dodrio, he was able to get a time of 42 minutes and 42 seconds, with a game time of 2 hours and 44 minutes. With Farfetch'd, he got very close to this result from Dodrio, getting a time of 43 minutes and 7 seconds. However, its game time was 2 hours and 36 minutes. And Farfetch'd had 12 resets, whereas Dodrio only had 4. Really all we need to know here is that Farfetch'd had the lower game time, so under ideal circumstances where both of these Pokemon have no resets, Farfetch'd will outperform Dodrio. But I do think there's something to be said for the fact that Zealous Pawn wasn't able to just sit down, play a Farfetch'd run, and get a better time than Dodrio. It still was the better Pokemon for him, at least for now. I did a nauseating number of Farfetch'd streams and videos on this channel already for Generation 1, so I'm not going to play it again until I finish all 151 Pokemon. If we filter by flying types, that means Dodrio is currently in 3rd place. It was also able to beat out the legendary Moltres, and I think that this is how these two should pair up. Dodrio is better than the legendary, because Moltres is just not very good in Generation 1, and it's really painful to play, especially when you have Fire Spin in the earliest portions of the game. For a second though, let's consider Dodrio in the context of normal type Pokemon, and in this case it also gets 3rd place. Snorlax and Persian were faster than it, and it just barely beat out Pokemon like Tauros, Clefable, and Raticate. There are definitely some Pokemon here that need re-rankings, including Farfetch'd, but also Kangaskhan, Porygon, Wigglytuff, and Chansey. All of them definitely can put out better results, and some of them are going to give Dodrio a run for its money. bounty. But for now, it is going to be the best normal flying type that I have played in the game, and it's also going to be the top spot in the B tier. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much, it means the world to me. Now, if you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video. And if you're still here, let's watch the Oak battle that I did with Dodrio. By the way, I've cut these out of my Versus videos just because I don't find them particularly interesting in the context of those videos. They kind of ruin the pacing. I talk about the Pokemon's performances, rank them in the tier list, and then I talk about Oak. Or the Pokemon finishes the game, then I talk about Oak, causing us to have to wait for their tier list placement for the result that they just got. And this Oak fight is so rarely interesting, like in this case with Dodrio, where I just spam attacking moves. I don't even set up agility. That's it for this video. Stay tuned tomorrow when I play another flightless bird. This time it's going to be painful because I'm going back and re-ranking Psyduck. It's one of the first runs I did on this channel and I haven't played it since then, but if you just look at its base stats, you know that it's not going to perform well. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.